Welcome to the Champions of Active Women podcast. In this podcast, we will interview individuals who have been successful within athletics and beyond. We hope that these interviews will encourage and inspire girls and women to be active for a lifetime, to reach their goals, and to break new barriers in sport and life. This podcast is brought to you by the Active Women's Health Initiative and the Sports Medicine Research Institute at the University of Kentucky. The mission of the Active Women's Health Initiative is to optimize health and promote physical activity and wellness for girls and women across the lifespan. We hope you enjoy our conversations and join us in understanding women's health today to ensure women's health tomorrow. Welcome to the Champions of Active Women podcast. I'm your host, Dee Dugonsky, and today I'm excited to have a conversation with Kelly Cecil. Kelly is currently serving as the president of the Active Women's Health Initiative Advisory Board. He earned a degree in exercise science from the University of Kentucky and has been promoting health and rehabilitation and wellness settings in the local area for several decades. He's a great advocate for health and wellness, and I can't wait for our conversation. Kelly, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So could you just get us started today by talking about, telling me why physical activity and the health of girls and women is so important to you?
Well, it's interesting because it all goes back to my childhood. And I was an only child, and I was raised in the country. And I had grandparents that lived close by, and I had an uncle that lived close by, and the only child he had was a female, and she was a year younger than I was. And then my mother and my grandmother were really my influences in my life. Mm-hmm. My mother was really a special athlete, but no one really had an opportunity for her to utilize or show her abilities and talents because Title IX didn't exist, and the school that she went to didn't have a girls' athletics at all. So, okay. And if you wanted to participate in sports, then you could, I guess, theoretically participate with the boys. But my mom was actually a little bit better than most of the boys, so that even ostracized her more from the boys because they didn't want to have her be better than they were. Mm-hmm. So when I was young and growing up, my mom was kind of my coach and mentor. Mm-hmm. And she would do things with me and teach me things, but she was just going off instinct. She really wasn't utilizing instruction from books or anything like that. It's just that she could do it. Why can't I do it? Mm-hmm. So that was kind of where I got interested in athletics, and that was the female influence with my athletics, was that my mother really took me to all of the, even from Little League and all those team sports. She was there. She was sometimes my coach. She was always getting me there and bringing me back, making sure that I, had food, etc. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of where I got my influence, I guess. But as I got older and really realized how, really unfair it was that she had these abilities but never was able to showcase any of them. And I kind of got resentful about it. And then as I got older, I had a cousin who was in Ohio, so I didn't get to see her very often, but her dad was a basketball coach, and he was actually a coach with Adolph Rupp. So, that at the time, that was Kentucky basketball was really a big deal. And he was her coach, and I was a little jealous, I guess, that she got all this private instruction. So I would always try to make an opportunity or try to get an opportunity to go see them, or they would come and visit us. And when we would be together, I noticed she was just way better than me at everything. Her fundamentals were better, her shot was better, her defensive fundamentals were better, and it's because I felt like she was getting, her dad was a collegiate coach. Yeah. So I loved visiting them. I loved spending time with them, even though she was just better than me at everything. She actually she was the all-time leading scorer in Ohio basketball history in high school. She went on to college and was the all-time leading scorer in college. So she was
wasn't just your perception that she was better.
No, she was just really good. And if the WNBA had existed at that time, I'm positive she would have been a star in the WNBA. So if you look at my mother, if you look at my cousin, if you look at my other cousin, a lot of females in my life, and a lot of them were females that I looked up to. It wasn't just because it was the only person that I had to be around. It was just the fact that I looked up to them. I idolized my mother. I thought my cousin was just fantastic. So I've always been kind of a person that has gravitated toward that since then. And I've never, ever taken exception with when I played team sports, you would hear it, oh, she's a girl, or, girls will never be able to participate and do this. They can't. And I always took exception with, even vocally, with my friends that would talk like that, because I was always, no, you're wrong about that. I mean, I've got real life experiences where I've seen my cousin and my mother, they're just better than me at that. So I just always had that perspective, and I think that's a unique perspective for my generation. Yeah. Okay, it's better now. Okay, it's better now. But, I'm 54, so I'm coming from an era where that wasn't as, I guess, accepted as it is now.
Yeah, but you were lucky to have these amazing female role models in your life for probably lots of reasons, but certainly for physical activity and
absolutely.
And
so I think that's exactly where I got my kind of number one, I became interested in athletics because of them, and number two, the perception. I never had the perception that girls can't do what boys can. I always felt like that they can do exactly what we can, and in most instances, they were just better.
So could you talk a little bit about your own physical activity and sport experiences? Sure.
When I was young, I think the fact that I was an only child, I gravitated towards sports that I could kind of do by myself. So I spent a lot of time shooting a basketball in the backyard. I spent a lot of time throwing a ball against a wall and catching it. I took up golf fairly early. Golf was something that at that time, there wasn't a golf course where I lived. So if you played golf, you had to travel to go play. But I found that I could get into my yard and chip and hit short shots with a golf club. And then I'd take the tennis racket and I'd bang it against the practice wall. Yeah. So those are things that I could do by myself, and I didn't need a team, or I didn't need somebody to play catch with or anything like that, although my mom did do that with me. So growing up, I played basketball, I played baseball, I played tennis, and I played golf. Loved football. Football was the one sport that I probably loved more than any, but that was the one that my mom would never let me play. And again, how forward-thinking was she? Yeah. She just realized that with my frame and my frailty at that time, that I could probably get hurt. And now with the concussion issues with soccer and football, if I had a child that wanted to play football, I don't know that I would even be, even though I love it, I don't know that I would be comfortable with them playing it. It's just it's a scary realization now that. It is. It could be. It could alter a person's life. So
absolutely.
So I did all the things. I played all the sports. Yeah, and if you ever do a podcast on stories, let me know, because I played in the last generation of Kentucky, in eastern Kentucky, where there were still the old legendary schools, and now there's so much consolidation with schools up there. When I went to school, in my county, there were in my region, there were 21 high schools.
Oh, my goodness.
In my region. And we had to play them all.
Yeah.
And then the district had to play twice. So sometimes in my region, we'd have to travel almost 3 hours to play a school on a bus, and it'd be on a school night. So you'd have to go play and come back. But some of these places are just, they were built in the 30s, they were built in the 40s, and you could shoot a shot and hit the ceiling. Some of them were in a barn loft. The school gymnasium was in a barn loft, so you'd actually have
you could tell all kinds of stories.
Oh my gosh! I mean, I just have
used to be active.
I just have great stories about those days, and at that time, all of Kentucky's basketball team came from basically Kentucky. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if you get to talk to the old timers want to talk about the Eastern Kentucky greats that came from that part of the world to play at Kentucky. So that's the era that I grew up in, idolizing the King Kelly Colemans of the world, and they all played in these schools where the actual school would have 60 kids in the school. So take 30 of those being boys, and then you put a high school basketball team together with those boys.
Yeah.
And then that was your baseball team probably, and that was whatever other sports that they played.
So different than today.
Way different. Now I go up there and I don't recognize the schools. Now the schools are consolidated and there's 1,000 to 1,200 kids in a school now. Yeah. I went to a high school where there was 300 kids, and we were the big school, in the area. So it's just it's so different. I mean, I'm not saying it's any what I had experienced was better or worse. I'm just saying it was just way different than it is today.
Yeah. So can you talk about how those early life sport or just physical activity experiences impacted your education, either in high school or college?
Yeah. I mean, when I played sports, I would say that the one big takeaway that I got when I played sports was the bonding and the friendships that I made with people. And then as I got away from the sport, I still stayed in contact with those people, but I started seeing a huge change in how they were, okay? Mm-hmm. I was lucky enough to play college sports and then even a little professional sports after college. So I was always in training. And I think that forced me to stay kind of physically active. Mm-hmm. But then you would go back for the 5-year high school reunion, and your point guard that you play basketball with doesn't look like the same guy. All of a sudden, he's working 9 to 5 somewhere, and now he's put on 30 or 40 pounds. Okay, well, that's 5 years after high school. And then you go back after 15 years, and now one of the players isn't there. And why isn't he there? Well, it's because he had a stroke, or it's because he's had, even more catastrophic health issues than that. And that really started framing my thought processes about how I wanted my life to go forward. I never wanted to be in a situation where I'm starting to see firsthand the casualties of inactivity, and these people going from high intensity activities down to some of them are doing manual labor, which is still hard, but it's so different on your body. It's so hard on your back. It's so hard on some of your joints. Or they go to a job where they're not being active and they're sedentary, and you start to see diabetes start to creep in, and these people now they're smoking, and I'm like, what happened? I mean, you never smoked when we. So I'm a huge. I mean, it's my big high horse has always been an anti-smoking campaign, because my mother did smoke and my grandmother did smoke, and they both died of cancer. So that was another influence in my life that, I'm just such a advocate for people not to get addicted to those type things. So I think that playing sports, being around people that were part of your team that you were with every day for a long period of time, and then you go away, and then you start seeing the changes in them after just a few years, and how the body starts to deteriorate, and it just scared me. It always kept me focused on how I wanted my life to go forward, which was to try to keep my body in as good. And it's a wreck. I mean,
even with all that work and good effort.
Yeah, I mean, we start talking about surgeries and replacement parts and all that. I got plenty of those too, but at least I don't take any medication. Mm-hmm. And I have, all my family has lots of history of taking lots of medication, so I don't at least take any medication. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a testament to, I don't live at the foot of the cross, don't get me wrong. I mean, I eat pizza and I like a run through a birthday cake just like anybody else, but I think generally I've tried to kind of keep my eye on the ball, and I think that's served me well so far.
Yeah. So did playing sports and being active, did that impact your choice of majors and then future career? How did that?
Yeah, I got a pretty bad injury when I was young, and I had to have a surgery, and I thought when I had the injury it was over. I thought, well, this is it. Your career is over. But Dr. Ireland's practice was a private practice at the time, and actually her partner, Dr. Grant, was the one that did the surgery. But I had a complete ACL reconstruction, and I was kind of amazed at how I bounced back from that. I mean, I was never 100%, but I bounced back from that. So I kind of wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. Okay. So that kind of, I was like, wow, this is really cool. You take somebody who was, my mind at that time was so devastating that, I can't do anything anymore. Mm-hmm. And then here they've done this, and now I'm coming back. I'm able to do some things. I'm able to run and jump and things like that. And I thought that'd be really cool. to do that. But a funny story is I had that, and so I was changing my mind to go into orthopedics, and then we had a gross comparative anatomy class. And I'd always been a little bit kind of weird. I don't know why. Like every time I get my blood drawn, I would always get a little bit kind of squeamish. But if I didn't look, I was fine. So it was just no big deal. But I remember we went into a gross comparative anatomy class, and they pulled the sheet back, and they said, okay, this is going to be your subject. And the smell, I guess, of formaldehyde or something, it just hit me. And the next thing I know, they're waving the smelling salts under my nose. And the professor kneeled down to me and said, you probably ought to think about something else. So
well,
it was great. It was great. It was great. So
right?
I said, okay, sports medicine, something like that. So I changed my major, and at the time, UK had just started kind of an exercise science program. So I'm actually the first graduate of that program to get
that's
through
a
there.
fun
Yeah,
fact.
so that's kind of neat that I was in the first wave of that. So it totally had an impact on my career choice and stuff like that. So I got to work with athletes a lot. In the training room, and then I started a sports medicine, a physical therapy practice that grew to a fairly large practice in the state, and got to work with a lot of athletes. And it was just fulfilling to see them go from my mind state at the time of having a bad injury and don't know if I'm going to play, and I'm sure they were in the same thought process, and then to be able to tell them, look, I came back, you can come back, and then see them come back was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But now I'm more geriatric because I think I'm approaching that myself.
Okay. Just shifting as your life shifts.
That's
you're
right. That's right.
changing your clientele.
You got it. You got it.
So earlier you had talked about your collegiate and professional career and your engagement really in organized sport.
Yes.
So talk to me about that transition out of organized sport and into lifetime physical activity and what that was like for you.
Well, I would say that the main thing is in organized sport, you're singularly focused on trying to accomplish a task. So if you're a baseball player and you're a batter, your whole life is trying to hit a round ball with a round bat, okay? Or if you're a basketball player, your objective is to try to score or play defense on that. So when you move away from the team sport into more lifetime fitness and things like that, that's when the golf and the tennis became a little more important to me because that's more recreational. That was more I could just get out with friends and play around a golf or play some tennis, no stress, no worries about winning and losing and things like that. Move toward recreational softball, things like that. So that was a fairly easy transition because it was still team sport or individual sport, still stuff that I knew how to do. But then I started finding things that were interesting to me. Like I'd never really liked running, doing things like that. But then I kind of took up a little bit of jogging because it was kind of good for keeping my weight down and kind of keeping me my cardiovascular fitness up, and I started doing a little bit of that. I found something that I don't think many people do, but I liked to fish. And I found that there was a place in Georgetown, and I did this a lot, where there's a creek or river called Elkhorn Creek. And I found that if I went and fished, and if I got in the water and I kind of ran in the water, I got an unbelievable workout. So what I would do is I would drive to Georgetown and I would take my fishing pole and stuff, and I would get out and I would go in tennis shoes and I'd go in shorts.
Okay.
And it's a unique place because the water, the bottom of the river is not slippery.
Okay.
So I would get out, and there was a bridge that I would get out, and I would run upstream against the current for about a half a mile. And then I would fish a little bit and stuff. And then I would get out of the water and take the road back to the bridge. And then I would get back in the water, and then I would run upstream about a half a mile. Yeah. And my quads were just fried every time I would do that. Huh. And it's good balance. And I mean, it was just there was nothing about it that I didn't think was beneficial. Plus, I like to fish.
Yeah.
So
you're rewarding yourself every time you finished.
Absolutely. So that was really kind of cool. So I like doing stuff like that. Just kind of finding things that that are interesting to do, that weren't boring, that was stuff that would accomplish a couple objectives. Like I like mowing my grass, just get out there and push mowing and things like that. I never would hire somebody to come and mow my grass, well, unless I can't,
right.
to mow my grass, because I always felt like, well, this is exercise. This is, you get 2 for 1. You get out there and you get to mow your grass, plus you get to exercise. So moving from team sports to the Lifetime Fitness stuff has just been just changing your mindset a little bit. And then you get all these injuries that you have to kind of modify what you do with the injuries, like biking and things like that. You did it as a kid just to get from point A to point B, but now you do it because it's a little bit easier on your joints.
Yeah.
You know, so I still do a little bit of that.
Have you ever had any struggles with having an injury that keeps you from doing things you like to do, and how did you overcome that?
Okay, I had a bad back injury, and that was strictly from male ego and stupidity. I was exceedingly strong at one point in my life, and there was a guy who wanted me to teach him how to deadlift, and he had the frame to be a deadlifter. Okay. So I thought he could be good at it. So without any warm up, without anything, there was a barbell or a weight on the floor, and I went over to give him instruction on how to deadlift, and I just picked it up. And as I sat it back down, I felt something happen in my back. Can't really describe it. It wasn't pain, but I just felt something was off in my back. And I went through the rest of the day with just kind of moving a little bit, but no pain. And then I went home, and at the time, again, I'm an old timer. I had a waterbed, of all things. I had a waterbed. So I went to bed, and I got up the next day, or I didn't get up. I woke up the next day, and that waterbed kind of has you in positions. Right. And I tried to get out of that bed, and I couldn't do it. And it was taking my breath away. I just couldn't do it.
Oh, my gosh.
And at the time, it was a landline phone, so I didn't know what to do. And I was living by myself, so I didn't know what to do. And I honestly, I was scared, like I've never been scared before. Yeah. And I needed to get to the phone to call somebody. I really didn't know who I was going to call, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't torque my body to pick up the phone receiver to dial anything. So I was in that bed for about 6 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
Unable to get over the lip of the bed because every time I'd try, it would just be unbelievably painful. So I finally was able to call somebody, and I think ultimately I got to Dr. Ireland, and then she, of course, said, well, number one, you're stupid, and number two, we can help you. So it was about a year to get, and I had 3 herniated discs, and L3, L4, L5, S1. So it was devastating, and again I thought it's over. Yeah. I can't do anything. I can't take this type of pain ever again. But through rehab and through good doctors and through a few shots, I was able to come back from that. But that has been the defining moment in my life about changing my Lifetime Fitness, because that took tennis out of the equation completely. That took any type of even shooting out in the backyard playing horse, took that out of the equation, took all baseball, softball, took that out of the equation. And so I was only left with golf, which really at the time I thought, well, this will be the one thing I can't do. But I was able to learn to modify my swing with just kind of using my feet, kind of dancing almost. And I am able to still play golf. Good. So that's kind of what I'm at now. But that injury totally changed my life. So that's something that I teach now to people about. You're one stupid movement away from altering your entire life. And that's what happened to me.
Yeah, but the other lesson, too, is that you're still active, and you've found ways to be active that fit with that, your recovery from that injury.
Absolutely.
Too.
And I think that science is progressing at such a fast rate that I think that people who are injured like that, there'll be way more options for them to recover from a back injury than what I had available at the time. I mean, I think they're doing things with stem cells now. There's just a lot more possibilities going forward that people will have. So, I don't want anybody to ever hurt their back, but if they do, it's not, at least possibly not an ending scenario for everything.
Yeah. So when you think back over your life, you've obviously had a lot of physical activity and sport-related experiences. Can you imagine your life without those experiences? And if so, how would your life have been different?
Yeah, I can't. I think being an only child, and again, shape it in what I grew up with versus today. I grew up with 3 television channels. That was it. TV would cut off after the evening news, so you just have snow on the television. So a kid that was high energy, you don't have a lot of distractions at that point that they have now. Mm-hmm. Like my daughter has the iPhone and the computers, and all of her friends are just a text away. Mm-hmm. And if I wanted a friend to talk to, you actually had to get on a landline and call. And there was a time in my life where it was a party line. You may not even know what that is.
I don't even know what that is.
That's where several houses had to share one phone line.
Oh.
So if you were on the phone and I pick up at a different house, I could hear your conversation, but mainly it was, how long are you going to be on the phone because I want to call somebody.
Right.
Okay. So that's what you had to do if you wanted to talk, or you had to go. You had to go see somebody. You had to get on your bike and go, or walk, or whatever. So if you don't want to do that, well, what are you going to do? Well, go out and shoot the basketball, or go out and hit the tennis ball against the board, or go out and throw the ball and catch it, Mm-hmm. So I think I would have been a very high maintenance child if I hadn't found those things to entertain myself with. Mm-hmm. And I read a little bit and things like that, but that just didn't, I can't read forever.
Right.
So I wanted to get out. I always liked being out too. I didn't like staying in the house. I see my daughter, and she's perfectly fine to be in the house on her phone sometimes. And I'll say, do you want to go for a walk, or do you want to go out and do this? And she's like, oh, I'm fine, which kind of frustrates me a little bit. But, it's just a different time now. It's just the way that they have so much more to do that can occupy their time versus what I had growing up.
That most of which doesn't involve moving or...
Yeah, I make her do some things, and she'll roll the eyes and go. Mm-hmm. But she's been good about her nutrition. She's taught me a lot about nutrition. She's a vegan, so she's compromised with me about getting some protein in her vegan diet. But I have compromised with her about now Thanksgiving is her vegan and mm-hmm. things like that. And I've kind of come around to where I'm perfectly fine if we go to a vegan restaurant or whatever. I'm fine. Yeah. I'm perfectly happy to do it. But I still, when she's not around, I won't keep me from throwing a steak on the grill.
Yeah. It's hard to give those up, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
So what advice do you have for girls or women about playing sports or being active?
Yeah, I think it's so much better now. I think you should explore. My daughter was an explorer. She tried the soccer, which I couldn't help her at all with that. She's tried the tennis. She's tried female lacrosse, which, again, I had no help. She's done the basketball. Some of it she liked and some of it she didn't like, but at least she got out there and explored. I think it's good because I think the friends that you make on those teams are going to be friends for a lifetime. A lot of times they're like-minded people that share some of your same interests, so that's good. To get to meet them. I think it teaches you good habits. It teaches you, it does feel better to work out for a couple hours, and then the next day or even that afternoon or evening, you do feel better. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that everybody, not just girls, but everybody should experience that. So many more opportunities for females now. When she started playing the lacrosse, I didn't know any of the rules of lacrosse. I'd never played it, never watched it. I thought it was going to be more like field hockey.
Right.
I really didn't know what it was going to be. But then she got the equipment, and then I got some for myself so I could practice with her. And I was like, this is hard. I can't run, and the ball just keeps falling out of the stick, and every time I throw it, I hit the ground. So I thought, well, this is hard. This is good. This is going to teach some skills for her. So I think that was maybe her favorite sport was lacrosse. So just explore, take your time, and try some of the things that maybe you didn't have opportunity to or mm-hmm. do. Or my mom, never had an opportunity to do. And you may find something that you like, and if you like it, stick with it. And who knows? Maybe like you may get a college scholarship and
it's possible.
Get your education paid for.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of nice for mom and dad.
It is. Your parents will certainly be happy with that.
Yes, you got that right.
Anything else you'd like to share with us today?
Well, I just think I appreciate you having me in, and I appreciate you having me to be part of the AWHI. I sincerely do believe in the mission, and I think it's something that, with your help and of course with Dr. Ireland being part of it, I think in 5 or 6 or 7 years it'll be big, and I think there will be a lot of impact on females who are going to come into contact with you and some of the athletes at UK or some of the academic people at UK and get access or opportunities to do some things that they probably wouldn't have done or wouldn't have had a chance to do in any other situation. And really and truly, Dr. Ireland said this, and I think she's absolutely right. If you just touch one person and turn their life from the direction maybe it was going to go, and now I have the crystal ball. I'm 54, so I can see the future of a lot of people and what inactivity will set you up for. If you can just touch one person like that and turn them around and get them going the other direction, that's fulfilling and worthwhile. I think we'll touch a lot more than just one person, but still, I think that the mission is good, and I really look forward to just being part of it.
Well, we are certainly happy to have you as the Active Women Health Initiative Board President, and thank you for your time today.
All right. Thank you very much.